What is up, guys? Welcome back to Lex Alexis for 1000 subscribers special. And wow, I can't believe that we've actually got this. You know, this man right there knows how long I've been trying to work to get to this moment. It's been nearly 3 bloody years, but we've done it now. So this is going to be your reward, guys, for being absolutely amazing for this season. We have got the king and the godfather of the championship, BENHD, on Lex Alexis. So Ben, how are we doing, my man?
Too kind. What an intro that was. I'm quite well, thank you. Yeah, it's been sort of an interesting season so far, but yeah, it has been a long time coming, sort of sitting down with you, really, because I remember sort of like the tweet you sent and stuff like that. And honestly, I've like really enjoyed watching sort of your journey and coming up and things like that, and just I think like the general championship community and how it's all started to sort of kick off and really grow over the last few years. So yeah, whenever you'd pop up in my sort of subscription feed or anything, I'd have a little look at how you're getting on, things like that. And yeah, it's been really good to see you grow.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. And it's literally why I really wanted to do something like this. I'd spoken about this previously when we've had conversations that this community, when you pretty much started it off, not many, if any, people were making any championship content whatsoever. You've kind of introduced a new platform for championship and football creators to even go out and express themselves. So it's people like you that have actually made the championship community a really, really nice prospect for YouTube in general. So you're a real pioneer in this movement anyway, which is absolutely amazing. Obviously, I take a lot of my inspiration from my stuff on your stuff as well. But yeah, it's a complete honor to have you on. We're just going to literally just delve through this season. We can talk about previous seasons, and we've got a bucket load of questions as well. But very, very quickly, Ben, do you just want to quickly plug your channel, just in case, in the very rare formality that no one's actually subscribed to you, which I'll be absolutely ashamed if that's the case. But by all means, make sure you plug your channel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've given me a really good summary there. But yeah, so BenHD for everything championship content related stuff, really. So previews, predictions, things like that, tier list, diving into sort of individual clubs and going through, individual players and things like that. And yeah, BenHD, all things championship, probably the best way to sum it all up.
Fantastic. Yeah. I mean, I would not have been there right now if you didn't take inspiration for this guy right there. So it's just absolutely ridiculous if you're not subscribed anyway. But yeah, I mean, what I tend to do when I start these conversations, I've actually had the same question with Benjamin Bloom and Mansby saying, how's your channel been due to COVID? But right now, it's kind of not really into this sort of mood anymore. Things are starting to be on the up a little bit. But I guess I can reword it and just say, during that time in around 2020 to now, how did COVID affect your channel, Ben?
Yeah, it was quite an interesting one because I think that COVID in general and stuff like that was, I think at first, like no one really knew, what was going to happen with like content creation and things like that. But I think that we saw a lot of people really sort of explode and boom over COVID, really, because I think that more people sort of at home and stuff like that, more time to watch videos and things like that. So I think it was all about sort of trying to get as creative as possible with it. I think definitely the time when we all had to get sort of the most creative was when the season actually was cancelled for that part.
Yes.
We didn't even have like predictions to dive into, any previews or anything like that. So we were sort of like, yeah, finding anything to sort of scrape the barrel with, any sort of like historical content that we could sort of go back to. Yeah. But once the season started getting up and going again, I think there were some real opportunities to get involved in stuff, and it was quite a weird time, really, because I think that like views and like new people jumping onto YouTube and stuff like that had probably gone up a little bit, but I think generally like my enjoyment of football like definitely went down during that time. Apart from like the big sort of matches that really meant something, I think it sort of coincided with Preston not exactly having all too much to play for, but then like behind closed doors, and you'd see things, we'd be on the like really laggy EFL streams and things like that, which just added the real pain
it's not the
to
same,
the life
isn't
as
it?
well. No, not at all. I think the thing I'm most happy to leave behind in the pandemic was those laggy streams from the EFL, really. But yeah, apart from that, I think, and now like coming out of the other side and things like that, I think we realise just how much like the atmosphere and stuff like that actually adds to the games and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely happy to sort of be in the situation we are now. But it was an interesting experience to sort of go through for sure.
Yeah, threw a curveball for everyone, really, not even just content creators. You know, we're talking about most industries and sectors really having to try and improvise and almost kind of, you know, ad lib whatever they had to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think we take for granted now some of these moments, and I think especially for football fans' sake, you know, even if it's a dull Tuesday night, you got to travel or whatever, you know, just even going to the stadiums itself and just not going by the laggy streams as you pointed out, it just means so much more difference. Even if it means you may see your team lose a 95th minute winner or whatever, it's all worth the fun of just going to somewhere else
Yeah.
and just, you know, doing the trek. No, completely agree with that. It was a really crazy time because, like what you rightly said, I had noticed that a lot of people actually almost started, you know, really getting out of their own with COVID, where in my case, it actually really wasn't that at all. You know, my viewers would know is that in around March time, I actually took a good month and a half off. And it
Yeah, I
was just
don't blame
really
you.
down.
I
Yeah, I
don't
know.
blame
But
you. Yeah.
it's because, as you said, you know, how can you really enjoy it, you know, without actually talking about the matches in the first place? So thinking, I'm kind of stuck here, you know, I've kind of run out of things to do. There was quizzes, there was historical
Yeah.
stuff I've done, there was so many things that I was just popping up by. And you know, the fun that you get and the efficiency that you can get to just do predictions as well, it's your
Yeah.
opinion. You know, you don't need to do too much work behind them, but when you do stuff like quizzes or even just research or even gaming, which I doubled in between as well, you know, it just takes time out of your
Yeah.
day. So yeah, it was a bit of a moment that you had to just kind of figure out, you know, you had to try and get some enjoyment in some way or another and just try and, you know, adapt to the situations. Obviously at that time I was in my first year of university as well, so studies with that was getting intense
Yeah.
there as well. So yeah, and I felt bad for university students who have to go through
Yeah.
that, because you've been in that same boat as well, because you're not that much older than me actually. But yeah, how has that been actually transitioning from face-to-face teaching to online stuff? Did it affect your degree at all?
I think a little bit. I think because I was doing sort of journalism, especially, you know, it was quite a hands-on course. So
Yeah.
like from like year one, year two, sort of all the like exams that would go to online would be a little bit sort of like fiddly and annoying. But I think that was like all right to sort of get over in the end. But I think it was just sort of like missing out on the sort of practical things because you know, part of the degree in third year, a big, you know, part of it was really sort of getting out, interviewing people. And I think once again, it was sort of a blessing and a curse as well, because I think that because of that, you know, people like us now can like communicate like that, like, you know, Skype and sort of Zoom calls have become the
Yeah.
norm now, which wasn't necessarily a case before the pandemic. So loads of that in third year for sure, which I was a bit sort of, I'm not sure at first, but you do grow into liking it after a while, and it just sort of becomes this thing of ease now, really, doesn't it? But yeah,
Yeah.
it was definitely an interesting one, sort of balancing sort of uni and YouTube and everything with the pandemic all going on at once. It was yeah, quite chaotic looking back on it, definitely.
Yeah, most definitely. I think it's just another thing that you touched upon there. You miss that social interaction, but you also miss the practical side of it as well. You know, journalism, I can imagine, yeah, it would be very, very
Yeah,
hands-on. I was supposed to do a placement as well, and that didn't turn up as well due to pandemic
yeah,
as
yeah.
well. So there's so many things that have had to change literally just as the years have progressed. So yeah, as it stands now, it's the final year, and only literally
Nice.
within 2 weeks of actually recording this is everything that is done. And luckily for
Wow,
my
yeah.
part is that I've actually secured work elsewhere, so that's already
Nice.
sorted. So
Nice.
that's really like the best thing for it, because when you hit 21 or whatever, you know, you need to have a future and just have something distinct that you've got to do. So yeah, that was very important for me, because now I've got 2 to 3 months actually to just to kind of kill time, probably even devote a lot more time on the channel, to be honest, and then get the sudden reality that you're working Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. You know, it's going to be very, very interesting to try and balance it all. You know, as much of a challenge as it was with COVID, but you live and learn. And you know, if you just sit around there and just stay complacent, you know, you're just actually not going to progress anywhere, aren't you? So you always got to be ambitious when you've got an opportunity to grasp as well. And like what you've done as well, you've taken many opportunities, especially this past year as well. So it's exciting times, I think, for both of us. I think we've got really promising futures on our hand. So we could go on all day about university, but I think we've got to go on with football in a minute, because that's ultimately what people have tuned in for. So with this 21-22 season, it's the third season I have covered on my channel, and gosh, blimey, I don't even know how many seasons you've covered. 16 days. So, you've seen a lot of seasons unravel. Some more dramatic than others. Some less predictable than others. But how does this season compare with all the other seasons that you've seen over the years?
Yeah, it's a tough one, really. I think that the ultimate thing that we all want to happen is and I think I always rank seasons when this is the case. Is I'd like to rank it by the last day, really, and how much sort of jeopardy is on the line on the last day. And dare I say it, we look like we're heading in a bit of a direction where pretty much at least two of those relegation spots are probably going to be covered off. Fulham, Bournemouth, maybe they've already got out over the line. So maybe the top six race is what we're really in hope of, sort of providing us with some drama, really. But I think that sort of summed up the Championship as a whole, really. It's been such a elongated one in terms of the quality that's been throughout the league. We've had Fulham, who have been in sort of a different stratosphere for most of the season. Bournemouth, who are just about sort of keeping up with the points per game needed to get in the automatics, and then just a huge clump of teams, which is so fascinating because really there's nothing to separate third from 10th at the moment in terms of games in hand. And that's how this season's been so interesting because of the different games being played and stuff like that. So it definitely hasn't been my favourite season that I've covered, but it's definitely has its moments, and I think that playoff race especially, and probably for unpredictability around that playoff race, that's where it probably does come up a little bit in my estimations, because I'm sure that by the time we both go back and revisit our predictions from the start of the season, there will be a few clangers in there, I'm sure.
Already dreading it, mate. It's literally the one thing that people keep reminding me of. But and I think it's something that all of us get reminded of, especially the table predictions is the one video everyone waits for, and you always want to try and do it justice as well. But I kind of agree. I think especially this season we've seen a real split of quality. We've seen Fulham especially, and then Bournemouth, even with their unbeaten run for quite a while of the season. I know they've slipped up quite recently, but they still got the quality players with them. And just with that transfer window, especially in January for them, they've just kind of almost really tried to push to the levels of Fulham now. So it seems a little bit confirmed in terms of the top two, especially over the last game with Huddersfield losing to Bournemouth recently. Huddersfield, I felt, could have been maybe the one team that could be the one outlier, but I think it's just showing that the squads are just literally on a different level. It would just be a shame that if they just get relegated straight back down again, because I always root for the Championship teams to do as well as they can in
I'm the same.
We get a little bit tired from time to time if we see Norwich and then followed by Fulham in consecutive seasons. It's happened for 6 seasons in a row now, so it does get a bit repetitive in that front. But the relegation pack could be quite interesting, especially if Reading drop off again, but albeit they secured a really good win literally a couple of days ago. And I think what's interesting is actually how the three teams have literally changed places. I think all three of these teams have either been 22nd, 23rd and rock bottom. But what's the point of actually playing for something if they can't get out of it? We've not seen Reading physically dragged into it yet. And there's a lot of controversy, I think, with this season, which I think is, stands out a little bit as well. Obviously, the Derby County situation, which, any update you receive from them, you just think, is it really going to be a succinct update? Is it really going to improve the club? And obviously, Reading have had their moment as well. They've had their points deduction as well. There's talks of other teams potentially getting deductions in the future as well. I think most definitely Middlesbrough, if they don't go up, they could be breaching profit and sustainability rules. So it'll be interesting. Out of the 3 seasons, if I were to literally pick a favourite, I'm gutted I didn't do the 18-19 season, because I think that season still to this day is right up there for the favourite one to watch. But I think just everything that happened in that season, you can have an essay on the amount of things that makes that season stand out. And I think, obviously the content creators I saw you, Benjamin Bloom, and all these other people, I think just that entertainment, but then actually seeing everything unfold live as well, because I think they actually broadcasted a lot more Championship games in that year specifically as well. I saw live about the Jack Grealish situation there. So, and there was a lot of moments there. You know, that's just only one out of about 20 moments that I could probably pick out from that one season itself. But I did a video. I can't remember how long it was, but I actually ranked the season, and I think the only season I actually put down as better as the 18-19 was the 12-13 for famous playoff Watford and Leicester game.
Of course,
yeah. If anyone thinks of a championship, they'll say that moment. So it's just something I couldn't actually put anything ahead of that. So I think that's the only season I would say. But I think also the final day we had up to 6 teams who could go down. We had about 3 teams that could go up. I think Leeds bottled it on the final day, which was quite hilarious. And and obviously the playoffs as well was also quite fiery too. But yeah, this season is interesting, but in a way, you know, I would have probably wanted a bit more competitiveness, especially around the promotion places. I think I would still say out of all the seasons I've covered, the 19-20 stands out. You know, I know Leeds kind of really ran away with it in the end, but there was always a time where Leeds were just stuttering a little bit. I remember they lost to Wigan very at home, and I was thinking, here they go again. Leeds are literally going to throw it away again. But no, it was Brentford who took the bottoming role in that year. So and the fact they didn't go up as well, that was not great for them. But if I had to say, maybe it'll be that one. What we'll do now, we'll talk through each team one by one. We'll just give like a quick, you know, analysis of what we think of them. So I think the best way to go around is just to go from top to bottom, I say. So I say let's start off by talking about Fulham. So obviously Fulham, 77 points. They could still get 100 points, but they've got to be quite flawless. I think they need 8 wins out of their last 9 games to get 100 points. So from looking like they can beat the points record, they've actually dropped, I believe, 5 points in their last 2 games recently. So what do you think about Fulham so far?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it'll be that point tally that Fulham will end up getting in the end. I think what is still achievable is that goals record. You know, they're on 90 at the moment. If there's a few more sort of like 6s and 7s for them for the rest of the season, then God knows what's possible. But they have been quite a bit of fun this season, Fulham. I think we all sort of expected them to be maybe not quite scoring as many goals as they did, but to keep hold of the big hitters. You know, the summer transfer window they had, you know, to bring in a manager like Marco Silva as well. So not all too many surprises, but they are a good team to watch on the eye. But like, you know, we were sort of saying before, in a way I will sort of be rooting for them in the Premier League next season, because I don't want it to be sort of a rinse and repeat that we're in this position in 2 years' time again. Okay, Fulham have smashed.
Yeah, here we go again. We're going to talk about them again. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, so I hope that they do sort of learn from some of the lessons of the past and they are able to level up a little bit. But they have been fun this season, but probably expectedly so.
Yeah, I would agree. I think you predicted them to win, and I think I predicted them to win as well. So if there's anything, you know, because in the past 2 previous seasons, I couldn't predict the winner for the life of me. I'd always predict them to finish in 3rd. And that can be any different this year, because I think I predicted West Brom to finish 3rd, and they're definitely nowhere near winning the championship this year. But yeah, Fulham do deserve it. They're, you know, Mitrovic, you know, he's just outperforming any striker right now. Just even when he was injured, just thrown straight back to the squad. Within 2 games, he scores a hat-trick. So, you know, if you take him out of the squad, he's always hungry for goals and he knows where the back of the net is. So if you've got that sort of player, you know, Fulham can almost beat anyone. It's always their defence, really, that I'm always sometimes not sure about, because I think to mind, they've had 2 occasions where I think they've conceded 4 goals this season. The one that sticks out for me especially is Coventry. They can't necessarily rely just on the star that Marco Silva's playing. And another thing with him as well, because I think back to his Everton and Watford days, if Fulham fall behind, him winning points back in losing positions is quite a problem for Fulham and Marco Silva in general. So they'll just have to attack the league by storm, and if anything, just to not overspend. You know, that one season where they won the playoffs and just spent over £100 million on players, you know, just made it just literally screwed the whole thing up. It made the team even worse than what it was. It really halted their progress there. So if anything, just if they kept the squad the same and actually had a bit of defensive discipline, then they could actually have a chance. But I said this before to Matt, the thing is with the Premier League teams, they've got so much experience in terms of surviving a drop. You know, I always think of the likes of Burnley, who've been able to do it year after year. Obviously, their luck may run out this year, But these teams are, tough to break down for a reason because, they're experienced. They've got the right tactics and mindset. They know not to play the prettiest football, but they know that they have to get points no matter what. And I think the newly promoted teams, at least, just going to make sure that they can actually tap into that and not necessarily play their over-expansive football that's obviously got them promoted through the championship. So it's having that versatility, isn't it?
Yeah.
But, yeah, hopefully Fulham will stay up because I completely agree. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying as a Chelsea fan, but in all honesty, Fulham and even QPR and all these teams, I don't really see them too much as a threat, really, to be honest. I just look at them aside thinking, oh, okay, it's interesting to see them doing well or not doing well, whatever. So, yeah, I hope they do stay up as well. So, now to Bournemouth. So, obviously, they're second, and it's been such a roller coaster. They literally started this season like a house on fire. And then your team come round and then literally spoil anything for Bournemouth at least, and then in a little bit of turmoil. So they'll have to thank your team for halting their progress there. But what do you say for Bournemouth? I mean, you probably wish you played Bournemouth every week. That's 2 wins you've got against this year.
Yeah, I do quite enjoy playing Bournemouth, to be honest. They've been a really weird one, Bournemouth, because they're second in the league at the moment. They look, bob on for automatic promotion, but even then, I think there have still been quite a few underlying issues at Bournemouth this season. Particularly when we draw the comparison to Fulham because they're the other team in the top 2 at the moment. I think that if we were talking about that promotion to the Premier League next season, I still think this Bournemouth squad has a hell of a lot of work to do. I think they've been a team throughout the season really who have played well. I think this applies to a lot of the matches they play as well, where they play well for sort of moments, but when things start to go against them a little bit, I think there's just something uneasy, and dare I say it, I'm still not fully convinced about Scott Parker and some of the decisions that he makes. He does leave me questioning a few things. I think that basically what Bournemouth saw was a bit of a weakness with the rest of the championship in terms of the top quartile apart from Fulham, and they probably saw their opportunity in January as their best opportunity to get back in the Premier League. So they went ahead, got all that January business done. I think that ultimately it's that quality which will probably get them over the line in the end, when we look at the teams below them at the moment. But there's still something that I can never quite put my finger on with Bournemouth, that I think that a few things still need to be ironed out there going into next season. I think a lot of the fan base reflects that as well. I don't think that they're sort of deluded to think that everything's quite rosy for them. I think that they understand that get over the line that at the end of this season and sort of take stock for where they actually are, which is quite interesting and quite a rarity, I think, for a team to be in their situation.
Yeah, definitely. It's a weird one because I think it's tactics really, and I think it's once again a little bit similar to what I said with Marcus Silva, just sometimes preserving the lead. And there's been sometimes actually going forward, they actually look absolutely incredible. Just even their recent game against Huddersfield, whilst both teams equally looked as dangerous going forward, Bournemouth, took all their chances. So it's literally just whether Solanke's clinical enough, and the good thing about them is that they've used their parachute payments well. They've actually got all these transfers in, but there's the added risk, if they've got to get promoted now. If they don't get promoted, with the amount of money they spent, they're going to be in their final year next year of the parachute payments, of course. So they can't gamble for too much, so they're definitely going for it, and they've definitely got enough faith in Scott Parker for what I can see. Otherwise, if they didn't have faith in him and they were spending all this money, they probably would have even been considering changing things. And there are some times that I do think Scott Parker does get it right, but it's that consistency sometimes. I think even against the teams lower down as well, just the difficulty breaking them down and just being able to hold the lead. I think I remember when they took the lead against Fulham, and then they ultimately controlled and actually stopped Fulham. This was a Fulham team that were going absolutely unbelievably with their form. And then they concede, I believe, an 85th minute equaliser to an unmarked Mitrovic. So, you do all that work, and then all of a sudden now you've just lost 2 points. So it's game management for me, for what I've seen with Bournemouth. But undoubtedly, if they do go up, they've got the potential. They've just got to invest in the right people. And I think similarly with Fulham, tactically, they just got to be adverse and make sure they're versatile with it, because Bournemouth in the Premier League, I think, were very guilty for getting a pummeling a couple of times in the Eddie Howe days as well. So they've got to make sure they're quite careful with that. But I do trust Scott Parker. There's a couple of times where he can get it right. But yeah, just to go over it again, it's the consistency, isn't it? So we've talked about the top two. I mean, both we can just agree that they should be going up, but whether they stay up, we just got to hope that the gap between the Championship and the Premier League is just not too big by next year, and we can cover different content. But with the teams in the top six, I mean, we've got Luton, who are third. Luton Town are third place. That's quite amazing. We've got Huddersfield in fourth, and Sheffield United in fifth, and Blackburn in sixth. And I tell you what, the amount of people that told me that Sheffield United would not get in the top six after I predicted them in my mid-season predictions, I'm like, just wait. Wait a minute, guys. Just wait. Just trust Paul Aikenbell and trust the process, But I think with those four teams, I think the best way you can summarize is that which one of these teams do you think are most likely to stay? And which of these teams do you think are most likely to potentially drop out? And who do you think may replace them?
Oh, good question, this one. See, I think this is probably the most interesting part of the Championship now, because we discussed the top two, the bottom three still to play for, but this is like, you could go down to really anyone as far as, I don't know, maybe Coventry, and you wouldn't get laughed at really, because it's still all to play for. I think that if I had to call it right now, the two that I would say I'm most certain on out of that top six in terms of staying in there, I'm going to back up Luton, and I'd back up Sheffield United as well as probably the two that I'm most keen about them staying in there at the moment. Huddersfield are a really interesting one, because all the sort of points per game projections while they were going on their sort of unbeaten run and things like that would all have them finishing in the top six. But the last two games are interesting. I do think that the international breaks probably come at a decent point for them, because I think it'll give them a chance to sort of just, take stock from where they are at the moment and sort of get back to what they were doing best before the international break. But right now, I would still give Huddersfield the benefit of the doubt as well. Maybe there is the argument that they have peaked too early though with the unbeaten run, and then it's a sign of what's to come after that international break. But I don't know if I wouldn't say this is the bias talking, but I'm not too hot on Blackburn staying in there, if I'm completely honest. In terms of the team that I would see taking that place from them, I'm quite hopeful for Forest getting in there, if I'm honest. Middlesbrough is still a fantastic shout. QPR, another team who it sort of felt like might have peaked a little bit too early in terms of their brilliant form at the start of the season. 2022 hasn't quite been clicking for them, and it feels like Warburton needs to make a couple of other tactical shifts. Millwall were brilliant up until that loss last time out. So in terms of anyone sneaking in there who's not in there at the moment, yeah, I just got a feeling about Nottingham Forest. Steve Cooper, he knows the playoffs, the run, and where he's taken them from since Chris Hughton was there at the start of the season. Yeah, I'm quite hopeful for them. But Middlesbrough as well, I certainly wouldn't rule out with Chris Wilde there.
Yeah, I mean, with Nottingham Forest, it's night and day, isn't it? If you were to make a comparison with the forms. It's difficult as well, because I'm just looking at that table now, and what's also throwing, I think, a lot of us off is just some teams have got more games in hand than others as well. So the two teams I'm staring at right now are Huddersfield and Blackburn, because they've actually are up to date with their games in hand. But the rest, they've still got games in hand to play. Middlesbrough with 2, Nottingham Forest with 3. So it's a tough one to call. But if I were to call it as well, I might as well get involved. I might actually back Luton. I think they will actually do what Barnsley did from last year. I think they will stay up there. I think they've actually got the form in the right time, and I think everyone actually forgets about this. But they actually, I think, with their home form, they've not been beaten since October. So their home form has been completely immaculate up to this stage. They've beaten Bournemouth, and they actually got a result against Fulham as well. So they picked up points, not only against teams below them, but against teams right at the top as well, and that's why they're in that position. So I'd say Luton. I can't necessarily give an exact position where they'll finish. That's just too difficult. But I would agree with Forest. Sheffield United is interesting, because there was literally there was a time where they were doing really, really well at home, of course, but then you throw in that 4-1 defeat to Coventry in there, and their injury crisis is completely, it's decimated their squad. But then they pick up a good result against Barnsley, so they've still got a decent enough starting 11 to take them over the line. It's just thinking who's going to if anyone's going to drop out, I think I would actually have to agree. I think Blackburn, because at the moment their away form is just not great. They've not scored in the last 7 away games, and if
Yeah,
you
it's not
can't
great.
score away from home, it's a problem. Ben Brereton, Diaz being present or not, they've still got the players who can perform. Tyree Stolan, Sam Gallagher, and Rida Kadra. They can all pop up with a goal now and then, but it just didn't happen. And I think that Reading result confirmed it for me as well. Even looking at the highlights, it did look like that Reading actually did create a little bit more. And I know Bradley Dack had a really good chance, but they're just simply not creating enough away from home full stop. So I would say Blackburn fall out. And with between 6th and 7th, I would say it would either be Huddersfield or Middlesbrough. I've literally got Huddersfield and Middlesbrough literally right next to each other, because the thing is,
I could see that.
I think with Middlesbrough, with the games in hand and Chris Wilder, he's very, very reliable. But then Huddersfield have still got good players within them as well. And even though they did not win, in their last 2, I think it's back-to-back games. They've lost Millwall and obviously now to Bournemouth. But they are tough teams, but they are against teams around them in the table as well. So, yeah, and they've got some tough games as well, Huddersfield. So I might even just say that Middlesbrough might edge Huddersfield there.
Big call.
I think
I like it though. I like it. I like it.
Well, you've got to have a big call. I think it's the games in hand that actually throws it all out for me. It had Middlesbrough not had all those games in hand, I probably would have a bit more confidence in Huddersfield, honestly. But I looked at this recently, but all teams around the top 6 have got a very similar level of running, winnable games, but also really, really tough games as well. And if they capitalise on the really, really tough games, I would take example that Sheffield United did not, losing to Coventry, they'll be in danger. But yeah, I'd probably would say Luton, Sheffield United, Nottingham Forest and Middlesbrough. I think that would be the teams, not necessarily in that order, but that would have to be my top 6 call.
No, I could see it. I could definitely see that.
And it means Huddersfield fall out, which I've got Huddersfield viewers who will absolutely kill me after this video. We've already talked about the teams around the top 6, teams that can go in. We've not really spoken a lot about Millwall and Coventry. I would probably say Millwall a bit more likely than Coventry to potentially enter the conversation. Coventry, on their day, you can't rule them out, but ultimately, if you've got Guy Okeres missing a one-on-one, you're going to have a lot of these players just not taking chances, unfortunately. I think Coventry will still stay around there, maybe top half still, but probably not top 6 looking at this. Then mid-table, it's taken this long and we've made it to West Brom. I think, in terms of mid-table teams, I kind of like breeze past them, but for the fact that West Brom are this low down, I think we do have to talk about it. So, what has gone wrong for West Brom this season, Ben?
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a disaster, all things considered, really, because we've been sort of speaking about how I think, especially because it's happening this season as well, when the top of the Championship, excluding Fulham, has been completely open, and any team that's had somewhat of a surge throughout the season has absolutely flown up the league. For West Brom to be 12th this season is a little bit of a disaster, really, and I was quite keen on them at the start of the season. I think I had them predicted to finish second. I think in hindsight, maybe Ishmael wasn't the best fit for that group of players coming in. And I think that everything is sort of aligned for ultimately them underachieving, really. I think it was, a bit of a misstep that they didn't properly go in and replace Pereira this season. I know that a player like that probably wouldn't have fit in under Ishmael, but I think in the second half of the season, that's been sort of evident for them, really. And then, bringing in Daryl Dike when we all thought, okay, this is the moment now that West Brom are going to fly. He then gets that injury. Ishmael ends up losing his job.
Bad luck.
The home form, which has been so good for them, started to dry up a little bit, and then Brucey Ball has come in ever since. So it feels like, weirdly enough, even with all the sort of talent that's in that squad, that there is a little bit of a rebuild on the horizon that's needed over the summer, probably more so by way of mentality more than anything else, really. I'm still not. I know that, I'm not piling on Bruce here, and this certainly hasn't been his fault this second half of the season, but I'm still not sure he's the right man to invest in terms of a long-term future for West Brom going into next season. But 12th this season for West Brom in this season's Championship is a little bit of a disaster, isn't it?
Yeah, it does happen from time to time where you get a recently relegated team, fall around a mid-table position. We only need to remember what Sunderland did, but they had their own problems there. And with West Brom, what was so peculiar is that they had their long unbeaten run with Bournemouth They were right up there with them. It was literally head to head between those two teams before Fulham started to score 7 a match. So it was a really close race between them. And then it got to Christmas time. It was 1 win in 10, which ultimately got Ishmael sacked, and then Steve Bruce didn't improve things. And once again, West Brom have an unbeaten home record, and who goes and ruins it? Preston. So it's another example of the team literally ruining a top team, apparently, of the championship as well. But once again, the thing is, Bournemouth have kind of recovered, but West Brom, they've been on a downward spiral since. It's disappointing. I think the disappointment is literally the best way to just summarize it. I mean, you're right about Pereira. I actually saw Pereira at Al Hilal when Chelsea had to play in the Club World Cup. And he was literally, their tactic was just pass to him, and you see if he can pop up for a moment of magic. So he did terrify me in that. But they really do miss that talented spark that can just kind of drift in, put in a good cross, and then could literally pop up with a moment of magic like that. And yeah, I almost kind of anticipated the likes of Karlan Grant being the main striker. I was a little bit shaky with that. When he started banging goals, I was thinking, okay, I definitely didn't have enough faith in him. But then, obviously, long term, that my original prediction looks like it was kind of fulfilled a little bit. I mean, I should have put West Brom a little bit further down than third, but at least I didn't put them in the top 2. So, yeah, but no one could have predicted mid-table. I would love to know anyone that got even West Brom outside the top 6, to be honest. So, yeah, it was a bit peculiar because a lot of the predictions I saw, it was always Fulham, West Brom, top 2. So, yeah, it goes to show that, you just need the right fit of the manager, and clearly Ishmael just wasn't that fit. I think that's just the best way to summarize it. It's been disappointing, good start, and ultimately really, really bad middle part of the season, and it doesn't really look too encouraging. Although they did beat Fulham, but it's too little too late now to be really picking up these results now. They've not really got much to play for now. They're going to be stuck in that mid-table position, sadly for them. So the next 2 teams followed by West Brom are actually the 2 West Lancashire clubs, funny enough. Blackpool ahead of Preston, so Blackpool is still ahead of Preston a little bit. But it's been interesting for bragging rights because Preston and Blackpool could be kind of swapping places. Preston at one point, they were well ahead of Blackpool, but then, something would happen, and then Blackpool all of a sudden now pick up their form again. So I would like to know, out of Blackpool and Preston, who do you think will still get the highest finish?
Oh God! I think if you'd have asked me this question maybe a week, 2 weeks ago, I'd have been very hot on this one being Preston. But I do have to tip my hat to Blackpool and Neil Critchley and what they've sort of gone ahead and done this season. I think what's really showcased by sort of like Hull and Peterborough and how they at times have really struggled to adapt to the level. Blackpool have never really had that. They had a little bit of a slow start, but as soon as they started to really get to grips with things, they've not really looked back since, to be honest. And there was a point in the season where I thought that Blackpool would really start to fall off. After Keshi Anderson picked up that injury, I think around about the start of January, there seemed, at times there was a little bit of a reliance on him in terms of the creativity and things like that. But Josh Bowler all of a sudden takes the spot as their number 1 man. So I think really between Preston and Blackpool, I think we'll be fairly similar in matching sort of points per game from now until the end of the season, because Preston have been, night and day in terms of us on the eye watching us under Ryan Lowe compared to Frankie McAvoy at the start of the season. I think that what it probably comes down to is that game at Deepdale between us. If Blackpool get a draw out of that game, then there's every chance that they'll probably finish above us. But if we manage to pip them in that game, maybe that just gives us the momentum between now and the end of the season. But I think it will be quite close between us, to be honest. Like, it will be like a point or goal difference separating us. I don't think there'll be much in it.
I was going to say, I think that game is going to be the difference. Yeah. I mean, people would argue what's more exciting to see which West Lancashire team was finish above each other, or the title race between City and Liverpool, and seeing if that would compare. But, I think especially people in Lancashire will probably disagree with that. But yeah, Preston really had season 2 halves. McAvoy started off just really, I just can't really summarise it really. And I would like to ask you about Preston, because they've really changed philosophies recently. I remembered when they were really heavily relying on actually youth players and young players, bringing young, potential players and bringing their talents up, investing big on those. But then last transfer window, you then go and spend money and try and get the likes of Ched Evans in. from the lower leagues as well. So it's a completely different philosophy, really. I mean, what direction do you see with Preston going forward? I mean, I assume it's better now with a man like Ryan Lowe in charge, I guess.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a weird one, really, because when we first came up to the Championship under Simon Grace, and like you said, there was that, clear recruitment strategy to get, gems, and this is probably what Blackpool have done very well this season, to be honest. Get players from, big top four clubs who didn't quite make it at that level. Ben Pearson being an example, Callum Robinson, Daniel Johnson, Jordan Hugill, a youngster who we picked up from Port Vale as well, and sort of mould them into the saleable assets that they went on to become, really. And I think we had that season where we finished seventh, and it sort of felt like we sort of reached our limit with that, and for whatever reason we decided to go down a different route of sort of tried and tested sort of people that have been there in League One, to try and throw them in with not really all too much resale value. And I think that's why really things have just become, a little bit stale at Preston over the last couple of years. I love Alex Neil to death, but I think that ultimately the recruitment that was happening in the last couple of seasons of his tenure ultimately meant that squad certainly had reached its limits, and bringing in Frankie McAvoy just seemed like a little bit of a soft reboot to that. But since Ryan Lowe's come in, I think he's brought a wealth of fresh ideas into the club, and I am hopeful now that we are starting to turn a corner with that recruitment, even by properly utilising the loan market, which I think has been something that we've really neglected. Thinking back to we had like Pickford when we were first up, McGeady after that, and then we sort of stopped utilising that market for whatever reason. But this season seems like we're back on track with that. So yeah, I'm hopeful that this summer we'll see a bit of the sort of old school Preston of what we used to in terms of investing in those youngsters and looking to pick up some bargains on loan deals as well. So I'm fingers crossed that we'll be going in that direction now.
I mean, a lot of your star players this season have been from loans. Daniel Iverson being
Absolutely.
one. Cameron Archer kind of bursting onto the scene a little bit since he's come in as well. So it goes to show, just invest in loans. Wages could always be a factor that can definitely make things a bit tricky with that. But if you've got a connection there and you can loan someone in, might as well go for it, really. They could really, really play out their skin. And with any luck, and luck being a key word, that you could potentially keep them permanently as well. I know there's a question that's actually aimed towards your loan players, which we'll go to in a minute. But we'll go through the rest of the table. I am looking at the likes of Stoke, Swansea and Cardiff being three teams that have had probably a lot expected, maybe minus Swansea, especially with the change of manager, and they've just had to kind of ride the storm a little bit. But with Stoke, especially with the investment they've made, a little bit below expectations. I think I predicted them to finish in the top 10, which, is not really great.
They always catch everyone out, Stoke.
Yeah, I know.
They caught me out.
I know. And I think there was one season, I think it was last year, where I predicted Stoke to finish around 15th, and then they outperformed my prediction there. So they're always a tricky one to get spot on. I look at Millwall and Bristol City being other teams that's quite tricky to predict as well. Stoke just languishing there. Cardiff, obviously, a bit similar to what we said with Preston, 2 seasons of 2 halves, completely diabolical, with the best word being to describe it with Mick McCarthy. Now to Steve Morrison, which I think turned a couple of heads, but recently they've actually been on the up a little bit, and goes to show if you stick by with someone, they can actually get the best out of their squad eventually. They've just got to be a little bit careful, though, because I almost have a feeling Preston have done that same thing to Frankie McAvoy, and it obviously got to this season and didn't quite work out. So Cardiff got to be a little bit aware of that, I would say, on their part, before all of them think that they're going to go on a promotion push for next year. Just want to remind them of that scenario. Then you've got the likes of Bristol City and Birmingham, the teams that just you would almost expect to finish around down there based on where they are as clubs. I would say I actually quite like Birmingham's investment in January. We talked about teams using the loan market, but they've used the loan market very, very well. Their signings of Hernandez, especially, I would say, in that left-hand side, was just something that they were missing. And even with Bakuna, who I don't think actually was a loan signing, I think it was a free transfer from Rangers, just having those players in just injected some energy and some pace into that team. So I feel like definitely when you get the January transfer window right, in one way or another, it does elevate the team. but they've just got to try and find a way to try and keep them in permanently, of course. Let's talk about the bottom five actually now. So we've got Hull, which are kind of just fair. We expect them to finish in around 20th. If they have a good run, they can probably finish a little bit higher than 20th. But we're looking especially at the bottom four. So we've got Reading, we've got obviously Peterborough, Barnsley, and Derby. I mean, obviously all four of these teams, I should say, have had their own ups and downs this season. Probably Derby only downs, but they've all had their ups and downs in one way or another. But what's your view of the bottom four of the Championship this year, Ben?
Yeah, I think my opinion slightly flipped a little bit with Reading getting that win this weekend. I think before that, I really was fearing for them, really. With Barnsley starting to put together a few results and things like that. But it's been really weird at the bottom this season, probably more so than recent years, really, because of point deductions and things like that. The fact that we had Barnsley for the first, half of the season looking like arguably one of, if not the worst ever teams we've ever seen at this level, and now the fact that they're within touching distance of survival is absolutely mental. I think that probably speaks to the sort of level at the bottom of the Championship this year. But it's all a bit weird, really, because of point deductions and things like this. Because obviously we see Derby at the foot of the table at the moment, but when we discount that point deduction, they are a much better team than those others around them. But 21 points was always going to be a massive thing to go ahead and overhaul at one point, and still is, but quite unlikely from this point onwards with the results recently. Isn't looking as likely anymore. But before the weekend, I really thought that Reading could have been sucked into it. I wasn't massively hot on the Paul Ince appointment for the rest of the season, but I think that ultimately, player for player, Reading do have a much better squad than the other teams in and around there, but particularly with the quality in the final third. And Reading probably have that more so than anyone, that they can play bad for 89 minutes and then John Swift can just do something like that and they get 3 points. And I don't think that any of the other teams in the bottom three, with maybe the exception of Derby if Tom Lawrence does something, I don't think any of those have that same luxury, really.
Yeah, I think that definitely stands out with Reading. Just even Ajaria, who can pop in time to time as well, which I think he's had more of a quiet season, Ajaria, this year. But, that's been completely unfair on him, really, because Reading would have actually had a pretty decent-ish start to the season, but then they were hit with their points deduction. And then almost from that moment onwards, things just got sour from top to bottom, really. And just clearly there was a whole disconnect, and Panovic was dismissed. I think it was almost kept, I think they kept Panovic on, I think, for too long, actually, from when they were in that bad period there. There was no signs of any improvement. And then we go back to Preston, where they completely turn up against your team in his final game in charge, and then they sack him.
Always Preston.
It's always Preston. Preston tell the stories of the Championship in one way or another. That's a third example. But in the rare occasion, Preston are in the wrong side of the result. But that dismissed Panovic, and I think had they got rid of him, I think sooner. I mean, I don't really particularly agree with Paul Ince as an appointment. I remembered when he was Blackpool manager, wasn't really too hot with that. But rather than that, I don't really see him as a long-term option either. At least what he can do is just try and drill the players and just at least get a new face in charge as well, and they might ultimately play better. And I think that's all it is as well. And I think, as you said, in the final third especially, I think they've just got more star quality in that position compared to the other teams. I think with Barnsley, we're looking at one of the teams with the worst goal scoring records. I think they're still yet to score 30 goals this season with 38 games being played, which is not great. Wow. And then we're seeing Peterborough, who are being probably one of the worst defensive teams ever in the Championship, with 75 plus goals, and they've still got over half a dozen games left. So yeah, I think both Barnsley and Peterborough, they've got their own unique problems. As I said, Barnsley with their goal scoring, Peterborough with their defence, and then Derby, of course. Where do we begin with Derby? They've had problems from day one, really, and it's been something that's been happening for quite a fair time. But I think before we go to the questions, one of the final questions I'll ask you is the whole Derby County situation. What's your view on the whole take?
Yeah, it's been a really tough one this season with everything, because I think that especially on like social media, when you try and dive into the issue and things like that, there's no
Yes.
real room for like a middle ground for this and sort of like a balanced viewpoint. You can't really sort of
It's
emphasize that,
impossible. Yeah.
yeah, people either attach themselves to this bar post here or this one here, and there's
Yeah,
no
yeah,
sort of
yeah,
in
yeah.
between. I think that ultimately the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle for Derby this season. I think that. Yeah, the point deductions have come around and things like that. And I think that, to be fair, Derby fans have been fine with accepting that, really. It's been everything that's sort of gone on since this season, since January especially, with, takeovers falling down and things like that. Weird statements coming out, and I don't think that we've ever sort of known who to properly point the finger at throughout this. Obviously, Mel Morris, but after that, and why this has been sort of elongated for as long as it actually has been. So, yeah, I'm hopeful that, and I've probably been saying this for the past like season, really. I'm hopeful
Mm.
that over the next month or so we'll get a little bit more clarity on this, and heading into next season, Derby will be able to get that sort of security. The administrators can finally get out, and a buyer can be brought in and things like that. But yeah, I do feel for Derby fans this season, because it has been a bit of a tough ride for them.
Yeah, I feel sorry for them as well, because the ultimate blame's been pointed. We had Neil Morris, we had Steve Gibson at one point, we've had Quantuma as well, who are the administrators. In fact, they've just released a statement, BBC Sport Derby, an hour ago. So apparently, they are going to start announcing a bidder next week. So I mean, yeah, we'll see how much we can believe that. I
How
remember
many times have we heard that? Yeah,
The
we'll
Sky
see.
Sports report. In middle of February, we were supposed to see Derby completely taken over by the end of February, which has elongated to nearly the end of March.
Yeah.
So yeah, just the continuous statements and the lack of communication as well is not really making the situation any better. But I am hopeful and optimistic if there are serious bidders interested, as Quantuma are saying, then Derby sooner rather than later will eventually get over the line. They're just going through all the stages of classification and just doing the final checks there. It is a very, very long process. It's something that almost Michael can kind of relate to as well, just looking at all the reports of people potentially taking over and all of that. Obviously, the situations are quite different, but yeah, it's stressful, especially looking at social media. So that's why I kind of take away from the social media and just keep my opinions to myself. I can only just say one potential bad thing, and then people on you like a ton of bricks. So yeah, it's almost better just to kind of watch, and just observe and just see what happens there, and then you just make your thoughts known, on a platform that's not necessarily going to attack you from the opinion. So yeah, we've talked through all the teams, and it seemed like forever, but we have got a bucket load of questions that we've got to go through as well, which I'm going to try and get through as quickly as I can. So the first question is from a man you've met in Coventry, Matt SB. He's left a comment for this stream. What do you think of Matt, by the way? Just like a small question I could throw in there.
Yeah, really friendly. Met him at that Coventry game, and it was a bit of a mental game, really. I knew there was going to be late drama, and of course it was Coventry. And I thought we had it in the bag as well.
Yes.
But no, I do really like Matt. Yeah, he's been like another content creator who's been on the up and things like that. And yeah, good guy.
Yeah, 97-minute equaliser. You don't see that all too often there.
Yeah.
Just the drive home too. I mean, yeah, it wouldn't have been a fun time. But he has asked, and I think this is a really good question: who's more likely to make it to the Premier League in the next 3 years, Preston or Coventry?
Oh, Jesus. I'm really not sure here. I think that bringing in Ryan Lowe has definitely sort of evened up the playing field for us a little bit more, because I think that before the last sort of like few months before Lowe had come in, if we're talking about trajectory and momentum, I think that a lot of it plays into it when you are a club like Preston and Coventry who don't quite have the financial clout of a parachute team. Momentum and club structure is absolutely massive, and before that point Coventry were obviously way ahead in terms of looking on the up, picking up some great deals since they've been up in the Championship, and actually have good structure and good manager in there as well. But Preston's an interesting one because there's a potential takeover that's come in with Preston as well, which could tip things either way for Preston. You know as much as me on that at the moment, how new investment will go into a club and things like that. So I mean, I'll back the boys and say Preston, but my head's saying maybe it's Coventry, but my heart will always say Preston there.
Yeah. I mean, what would I say? I mean, I would have a non-biased view on this, but I would say Preston as well. I tell you what, Coventry remind me this season. They have reminded me a little bit from when Preston 1920, when they had that unbelievable start, and they at one point were first place in the table. Then either a couple of injuries have decimated, the form and momentum of the club, and then obviously in the following season, we won't really talk a lot about that season because it was quite a bad season for Preston. So I feel like with Preston, if they do get taken over, and just the fact that Ryan Lowe has clearly come in and he's actually injected a good positive momentum to this team, I think as long as they can actually invest into some good value there, because I feel like what's held Preston back a little bit is that yes, they've invested, but they've not replaced. And when they've replaced, they've not really gone down with the same route as they have done recently. And I feel like this season, give Ryan Lowe a transfer window, and if he actually operates similarly to what Simon Grayson and Alex Neil did, I think Preston naturally, and especially if they have a positive momentum at the end of the season, QPR had it, it will carry on to next season. So I might say Preston, but it is so close because I literally look at Preston and Coventry literally being very similar positions. I mean, in the table in real life, they're only separated by 3 positions. So there's not really a lot to base it off, just based on the manager and the momentum. Now, I said that there was a question on the loans, and this is the question I was on about. So Honeygun has asked, out of Daniel Iverson, Seth Vandenberg, and Cameron Archer, which one of those 3 would you most like to see back at Preston next year?
Yeah, I'd absolutely love all 3 of them, but I think I'd have to say Cameron Archer. I think for a club like Preston to have a player like Archer, who I fully believe if you give him a full season in the Championship in the right system, he will score you over 20 goals. And a youngster from the Premier League that can deliver that is, absolute gold dust. Daniel Everson's fantastic, best keeper I've seen at Preston since Jordan Pickford's been here. Seth Vandenberg, who's sort of brilliantly come into this squad and really grown up as a person since we first bought him, really, and stepped into that sort of ball-playing defender who we lost in Ben Davis. But Cameron Archer just has that X factor about him that if we don't get him back on loan next season, I think it's going to be really tough to replace.
Yeah, I mean, who else would you really have to supply the goals? You're probably looking at Evans and Reece Jacobson again.
Yeah.
And I feel like Cameron Archer, if you can get him for a good couple of years, he could almost be a little bit similar to a Callum Robertson type of player and have that impact to that squad there for the amount of goal contributions he can get involved as well. It's just really just down, if they can get him back, how long can they get in? And can he literally by himself push Preston maybe to a position that normally people would expect Preston to be, and give them a fair shot of going up to the Premier League, because that's ultimately what all teams in the Championship are aspiring for. So yeah, an interesting question. I mean, I won't have any comment to pick whichever one, but no, all 3 of them have been fantastic. I've been really impressed, especially by Iverson. I think about one save he's did against Bournemouth. I've not seen Premier League keepers do that. So absolutely unbelievable. So they all 3 of them have been good in their own right. This is a question from James Macy, and he has asked, what are your favourite Championship moments?
Favourite Championship moments. I do like a survival on the last day. Bolton's one was pretty dramatic. Was it like Aaron Wilbraham?
Aaron Wilbraham, Forest. Yes.
Yeah. I like that one. A collapse on the last day is quite funny as well. When that happened to Forest as well for slipping out of the playoffs and things like that.
Brentford not going promoted in that same season too. So we had 2 bottle jobs there.
I think that's the cynic in all of us, when you see another sort of club failing in the last hurdle, you're thinking, okay, yeah. Even when you don't necessarily, you don't have anything against that team. I think that's just the nature of football fans, really. But I think we touched it before. The Deeney moment was just
definitely,
it's ridiculous, and that is what the Aguero moment is to the Premier League, isn't it?
Yeah, I would even dare say better as well, just in the context of it as well. It would have even just been more beautiful if Watford did get promoted.
I think had they gone up,
that would literally have been the cherry on the cake. just from that one moment, I would say this moment has taken Watford to the Premier League. Of course, they had to wait a couple of seasons, and Leicester, who were unlucky, actually got promoted in the following year. Were absolutely incredible. Yeah, I would agree. Favorite moments would be teams bottling it. You know, the playoffs I think is also great as well. You know, watching the playoff final, as you know, with it not really being a game with the best quality of football, just the intensity of it, just what's on the line. You know, you're really gripped to watch it, especially if you watch it live as well. I think it also makes a difference as well. I mean, you've experienced watching a League One playoff final, but a Championship playoff final, you know, would be just as intense as it was. Yeah, I would completely agree with that. Right, so this is from LJP on Twitter. He has asked, how did you get into supporting Preston?
Yes, that was completely just through a family thing, really. My dad supported Preston. I think I went on my first game when I was about 7 or something like that. I think I got my first season ticket when I was about 11 or 12, really. And then since then, just been completely hooked by it all, really.
Yeah, it's a good age to start, isn't it? I mean, I've not really been to too many games. I think you're counting the games with fingers of one hand of the amount of games I've been to. But in terms of watching seasons religiously, I would say 8, 9, 10 would be around that time. That 2008 to 10 period, you know, was definitely when I felt like we started really growing and loving football. And obviously, it's got us to the position right now. It's amazing. So he's also asked, who would you support if you didn't support Preston? Which I think is quite an outrageous question.
Oh, that is an outrageous question. See, I don't know if I can say like another. If I was boring, I'd be like someone like if someone like Bamber Bridge, who's like one of my other local teams who are in the non-league or things like that. But if I was to go completely curveball, because I don't think I can throw another English one in there. I'm not going to say I'm just going to support Blackpool or something like that.
That's what he wants you to say.
Yeah, that's not happening. It would be. It would probably be like Barcelona or someone like that. I've always had a real affinity for Barcelona. I think that sort of 2011 team. I've always just had a real soft spot for them, the football they played and stuff like that. So that'd be my sort of politically sort of boring answer. That's not anything too controversial.
Yeah, I would probably go the same route as you. I mean, I do like La Liga football. I do like watching Barcelona and Real Madrid, but I would, definitely. And I think I would actually go into Bundesliga. I always have a soft spot for Borussia Dortmund. And I think what's even better as well is just the connection, seeing someone like Jude Bellingham, former championship player, of course, and just seeing what the player he is now. And obviously they've got star quality, you know, in their position as well. Haaland, you know, at the rate he's going, he could be one of the best strikers of all time if he can keep going as well. So it's exciting times, and it's also a team that's not necessarily going to win the league every single year as well. You know, it will get a little bit boring. I mean, here's me talking from a Chelsea fan, but it'll get a bit boring when you just support a team that just wins, you know, the league all the time. And to be fair, Chelsea have not really done that for the past 5 years or so. So I can kind of I can get away with it now. So he's also asked LJP, top tips on starting YouTube. I guess we can both answer this one.
I think definitely the first thing would be just throw yourself into it. I think the worst thing you can do is sort of procrastinate and think, you know, I want my first video to be amazing and it needs to be spotless and things like that. But I think you learn quite quickly that the longer you go on through YouTube, every video will be better than the last. You'll pick up little hints and tips and things like that. Do what you're interested in. Find a little niche for you that works. The sort of content that you think, I'd quite like to watch that, but nothing's out there. Suddenly you realise there's a bit of a gap in the market for that. And then after that, it's just really sort of consistency, sticking to it and making sure that you still enjoy it, really, because I think that shines through to the audience. If you're not sort of enjoying what you're doing and what you're putting out, I think that people will see through that, really. So keep on going with what you're enjoying with and just get in there and start straight away as soon as you can.
Yeah, 100%. I like what you've even said, you know, just even picking something from a gap of the market as well, because that's exactly what you did as well. Because I was occasionally seeing your stuff recommended even before, when you actually started doing these predictions and reviews, even back to the FIFA days, which I'll mention at one time as well. But just, you know, if things are not necessarily going well and you're doing content, you know, that you do enjoy, just still do it. Obviously, you know, the most important thing really is just to do things that you enjoy. You know, obviously I've kind of taken inspiration for what I've done with my content, at least. But at least what I've tried to do is to incorporate more live streams into it, incorporate more gaming into it. It's just doing everything that you necessarily enjoy doing as well, but also fit to a schedule as well. Because, you know, like what Ben said there, if you procrastinate on it and you don't necessarily post consistently, and I think consistency is a really, really important and key word when you post as well. You know, there's the argument of quality over quantity, but you know, if it's in quality enough for what you've got, you know, definitely go for it. And I think once you start being more dedicated and religious towards it, you'll start picking up equipment, you'll get new cameras, microphones. You know, going and blowing up on YouTube does not happen overnight. Just see what my channel's done. It doesn't happen overnight. So, you know, for anyone that just makes content just expected to get paid within the first video, it just doesn't happen. I spoke to this with Benjamin Bloom last year. It's, you know, it just doesn't happen overnight. So it's a long process, but if you're serious and committed to doing it, just simply stick to what you think is, you know, what makes you smile, really, to be honest. And if there is something that you enjoy doing that there's a gap for, you know, don't be afraid to do it. You know, take risks. But consistency and fitting with your schedule, I think, would be what I would say as well, alongside everything what Ben said as well. But yeah, fantastic. It's good that we both got a good insight about that. So this is a question from Owen, who's a frequent viewer. He has asked you to name 3 teams this season in the Championship that you've been impressed by.
Oh, 3 teams that I've been impressed by. Luton straight away, I think have to be in there. I think I'd predict them to be sort of around about 10th. I fancied them to be pretty good, but not quite as good as they have been this season. Huddersfield, another one on top of that, absolutely amazing, by far and away exceeded my expectations this season. And as the last one, I'd probably still throw in Blackburn into that in terms of an overachievement from the start of the season. You know, losing Armstrong, it felt like Tony Mowbray had taken that squad as far as it could go. And I know that sort of expectations change throughout the season. And if they don't make the top 6 now, it'll seem like the end of the world. But it's still been a massive improvement on last time. And yeah, those 3 are probably the ones that straight away sort of spring off the page for me.
Yeah, it's the first 3 teams that I would say as well. You know, just you basically of your predictions. I saw Luton as a dark horse. I think I predicted them to finish 9th, which is not too bad, but not top 6. I don't think anyone really predicted Luton to be this high up the table. They've just constantly been a club exceeding expectations every single year. I think they're now officially on their highest points total ever in the Championship already. So they've already overtaken the points that they've achieved from last season. So they've still got 8 games left to really attack this season, and you know, they could really have a really good chance here. So, yeah, I think them in particular. But yeah, you mentioned the likes of Huddersfield, Blackburn. If in terms of overperformed, it would be those 3 teams. I'd agree as well. So, a comment from Harry. He has asked you, what has inspired you to start YouTube?
Oh, so I got into YouTube a really weird way, really, because the first videos I made were when I was in primary school with my friend. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember watching like Fred? Do you remember Fred back in the day? Like the really sort of high pitched, squeaky voice sort of thing like that.
I did. Yeah. I can just about make out. Yeah.
Hey, it's Fred, and I'm gonna go grocery shopping. You're probably wondering why I'm doing the grocery shopping, and it's because Mom has to work 2 extra jobs because her first one wasn't paying good enough because of the economy and the government and all that stuff. So she let me do it. I don't really know what to get because my mom gave me a grocery list, but I ate it because I was hungry. So I guess I'm gonna have to wing it.
Yeah, well, I was obsessed with that, and I thought that I quite want to do that. So I'd do like silly little skits with my mate back in the day. Then I started going into sort of gaming and things like that. And then after all of that, getting into football content really. But in terms of like influences in like the footballing world to get into sort of this space, sort of all the big ones like your Spencer FC's, True Geordie back in the day, with his Premier League rants and things like that. And I think it was just seen for me like I love this content. I just want someone to sort of do it for the Championship really. So yeah, that was me getting into it really.
Yeah, you do get inspired and you think, if I were to do it, how would I do it? It's just thinking like they've just done it, but I'll do it my own way and see how it goes around as well. And you naturally get entertained. You get this bug that you want to really promote yourself in that way as well. Yeah, it's interesting because Spencer FC and True Geordie, especially Spencer, I've watched a lot growing up as well. he has some really, really good FIFA series actually, and with him not living too far away from me as well, he's actually went to the same secondary school as my two siblings. So
nice.
Yeah, I know. I mean, completely different in age groups, but
not much crossover. But
it's not too much of a crossover. But it was a cool connection regardless. So for the fact that he was local as well, it's amazing as well. And yeah, True Geordie, yeah, I'll remember those rounds as well. Even stepping into YouTube entirely, and I'll throw you in the ring for that as well, because what I've said this before, because someone asked me about just like why have you molded yourself, a bit similar to what you've done, but I think I remember this, and I specifically remember where this was as well. I was on holiday in France, and I didn't have a lot of storage on my phone, but the one rare time that I did have storage, I was very into making predictions. Predictions is definitely, I got to a phase that I just thought, I don't know why, but I'll just predict the whole Premier League table. But then I remembered, because I think it was a couple of mates we had in a group chat, that we just all gave our predictions, our 1 to 20 predictions. And then I decided to try and be the bigger man and show off a little bit and do my championship predictions. It's just something that was there, and it definitely confused a lot of people. But then naturally, when you're invested and you do your research into it, that's when I find channels like you. And obviously, you were really like at that time, because this was around 2017-ish. So this would have been your first season making those videos. Wow. So yeah, it's that long back, which is absolutely crazy, 5 years later. But just even seeing the quality in that, it felt like to me, and it's not something that was any events at all, but it seemed so simple. The concept that you made just seemed so simple, and it just felt like, camera on top of the TV, done. And it just felt like, if he can do it, I can give it a good go as well. But then obviously I learned very quickly it's not necessarily as easy as it is. But sometimes actually having that that simplicity actually, I think, would encourage people as well. And then obviously other people have gone around. We've talked about COVID being one thing that's, kind of influenced people as well, just to do something in their pastime as well. But it's been absolutely mad. Gosh, I mean, you're talking about throwbacks there with the Fred thing as well. I am going to give you 2 words, which is a throwback, which I literally just thought about just before I was going to interview today. Do you remember Gregory's goals?
Yeah, of course. I remember Gregory's goals.
Hello and welcome to Gregory's Goals. Hey, I'm BENHD. I'm doing a preview of the championship. Get rid of the green screen, because you don't want to pull the wool over these people's eyes. They know that you're actually in your bedroom doing reviews on your computer. That's fine, but admit to it. Admit you're doing that.
Do you know what? Gregory's goal would have been perfect if he came back around when the pandemic started.
Yes.
Need a bit of content from somewhere. But that, to be honest, that was quite fun back in the day, because I think I was around college back then. I remember being on the bus going to college, and I saw that someone had made a video on me, and I was thinking, this must be a joke. This must be someone else at BENHD. But someone tagged me in the Twitter video, and I watched it. I thought, what is going on? I showed it to everyone at college. I was like, what is happening? But that it was a fun time, to be fair. Looking back on it, it was a fun time.
I just like that you actually fought back and got him to do a forfeit as well. I think he since took the video down. Well, I think he had to go to wear a Preston shirt and say sorry to you. I think that was what the forfeit was.
Yeah, to be fair, I gave him the challenge of whoever's team finishes highest this season needs to do a forfeit. And at this point, Preston were 12 points clear of Aston Villa or something. I think in the end we finished 1 point above them or something ridiculous. The last few weeks of the season I was sweating, but thankfully didn't have to do that.
Yeah, no, that was a bit of fun at the time. This was I think right at the start of diss track season as well. So you would question his antics and motivations to do all this stuff anyway, and just why he would have targeted you in particular, where he could have literally reached for more people at this time, because you were still, I think under 10,000 subs at that time. So you're still trying to grow up as well, grow into some popular content as well. So it was a very peculiar one, but I was disappointed because I literally couldn't find his channel. It's just completely gone. The best thing I would have wanted to do for this video was to literally just pin the video where he had the video, but he's got rid of it now, so I'm gutted. But I was there. I can safely say I was there. And I was there as a viewer, to see him apologize from that moment as well. I mean, most people here may not know what I'm talking about. Might have to include
that is good knowledge, to be fair. That is good knowledge.
Yeah, I know, but this is 5 years ago, so we're talking a proper throwback there in your first championship season as well. So another one from Harry, who actually got overloaded a little bit from that one. Best moment supporting Preston.
I think it'd have to be getting promoted at Wembley. Especially with our sort of like playoff record and things like that, going into it, because we bottled it on the final day. I wasn't feeling good about going into the playoffs at all because of that record. But to see a team getting promoted at Wembley is unreal.
I think 4-0 is also just a really good scoreline as well. You know, it would be a bit less enjoyable if it was just a narrow 1-0, an early goal, and you have to survive for the rest of the game. But it was very, very one-sided. So it definitely wasn't enjoyable. Time for Preston fans, it would have definitely been a good time for a party. Now, I need to get through to this question because this is a long-running debate that just happens exclusively on my channel. There's a real split between Leeds and Huddersfield fans saying which team is better. So we're going to throw this question onto you as well, which I'll have to answer as well. Which team is better, Leeds or Huddersfield?
So is this off like an 11 and like
just
11
in general,
club basis,
club basis, just in general from history and all of that.
Oh God! I mean, I do like, I like Huddersfield away. I think it's quite a fun away day and things like that. But I'm gonna have to say Leeds, aren't I?
Yeah, it's just like, be careful what to say, because you're gonna upset a couple of people in a minute. I mean, to be honest, what I will say, I do find Leeds fans a little bit more intimidating than the Huddersfield fans. I can't lie. But then, being a bit of a hypocrite, I'm just, I'm talking about with Huddersfield fans who are currently Championship viewers. So I should probably side by them, but. No, if I was to even relate to it as a Chelsea fan, Leeds have always, for me, have been proven to be the one team that I would, compared to Huddersfield. I mean, I know Huddersfield got a draw against us when they were up in the Premier League, which ultimately stopped us getting Champions League, which still really annoys me to this day. I think still Leeds would be the one team that I still look at now. I'm not necessarily looking at this season specifically, but even over the years of what they've managed to achieve. I know Huddersfield have achieved good amounts in Herbert Chapman.
It's a massive club, Leeds.
It's a massive club, and Don Revie's just completely, I think, given Leeds an identity and just the European days. It's just a time for Leeds fans to reflect on as well. So I'll probably say that as well. So I'm sorry to anyone who likes Huddersfield, but I'm hoping that can kind of end the debate going on my channel as well. It's literally, this is constant in my live streams as well. Just the banter between Leeds and Huddersfield is actually quite funny. So if anyone don't actually want it to stop. Okay, so this is from the same person. So this is Charlie. So he is asked, what is the favourite Championship season you've ever watched?
Oh, I think we went back to it before. Was it the 17-18 one? Was that the one with all the sort of big hitters in with the Aston Villa?
18-19, I think.
18-19, yeah. I think that season I think the quality levels were ridiculous that year.
Yeah, I think just even the variety. You've got a high-scoring team like Norwich. You've got a very robust Sheffield United team. Aston Villa in great form. Leeds, they would be right up there. I think being one of the best Championship teams not to go up in that season as well. I think Brentford gave them a good run of their money in 1920, but you would think of Leeds and Brentford being those two teams, being the best teams at the time that didn't go up to the Premier League. And obviously, inevitably, they're both now competing up there now. So, yeah, that was fun. But 17-18, funny you should mention that. That was the rivalry we had with Nuno and Neil Warnock, though. Yeah. So that was still a good moment. That was good as well. Yeah, that was a great season. Actually, really fun. And I think that Wolves team, we just couldn't believe our eyes that this was a Championship team. Just some of the goals that they were scoring. And the fact they just missed out on the 100 points as well would have been a cherry on the cake, but they couldn't beat Sunderland. So they got what they deserved in that front, I guess. All-time Preston player. I think this is a good question.
Oh, in terms of a personal favourite for me, I think I always go to Joey Garner. I think the fact that he was a Preston fan, top scorer in the promotion season, left everything on the pitch and things like that. Yeah, I think I'd say Joey Garner. Although Ben Pearson comes close because I do love Ben Pearson.
Yeah, both are really classic players as well. Very nostalgic, especially Joe Garner as well. Definitely watched him a lot. Another one from Charlie. He has asked, who in League One has the potential to be a Championship dark horse? So who's going to be the Blackpool of next year out of League One? I think it's a really good question as well.
Yeah, I quite like the way that Wigan have been going. I think especially after how they went down last time in the Championship. We played Wigan in a pre-season friendly before the start of this season as well. And I think they've got quite a good manager in there at the moment. And the way they're playing and things like that, they did catch my eye at the start of the season from that pre-season friendly. But yeah, League One and the quality in League One's pretty high at the moment. So there could be a few to watch out for.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Yeah, League One is just getting players like from Ipswich getting Burst and Selena in. They're just getting all these quality players somehow. So, and even the managers, Alex Neil to Sunderland, Danny Cowley for Portsmouth as well. So yeah, League One's getting a little bit more interesting. But I'll say, I'd say my team, if they do get promoted, would be MK Dons. Obviously, when they did go up in that one season, I think it was 14-15 in Preston's promotion season. They had the likes of Dele Alli, but unfortunately, they just ultimately didn't score enough, I think, and they just conceded too many. But I think the squad that they've got, Scott Twine is a player that I've definitely have been linked with a lot of terms of transfer videos that I've been looking at as well. They lost O'Reilly, who was very heavily linked to a championship club. I can't remember which one, but he's gone to Scotland now, but he was their top goal scorer at that time. But they've got a good young manager around in Liam Manning as well. Even the likes of Mo Weiser as well, who Peterborough would have wished that he stayed on with them, but he's done bits with them for MK Dons. And even the likes of Troy Parrott, I almost forget he's in MK Dons right now, and I think in 8 appearances he's got 4 goals. So almost forgotten about him. So I think MK Dons, but you can't deny Wigan have also been really good as well. And I would like to throw Sunderland potentially in that mix as well, but they've just got that tendency to bottle it. They've really been carried by Ross Stewart this season with the amount of goals that he scored as well. I mean, if I would have to pick one, it probably would be MK Dons. This is a really, really good question. Who's the best youngster in the Championship?
Oh, a lot of ones in there at the moment. Middlesbrough have got some great youngsters, Spence and Jones. I think the one that I'm really excited about is Brennan Johnson, probably, in terms of stepping onto that next level in the Premier League. Yeah, Brennan Johnson.
Yeah, Johnson, bowlers, one for Blackpool. I thought of Jones straight away. I remembered watching Middlesbrough against Fulham in the opening day of the season, and he was a man possessed. Just the amount of times he got into Fulham's back line now, it was absolutely incredible that he's got that amount of confidence as well. And even for West Brom, I would even throw Garner Hickam into there as well. He's been a really, really late bloomer, really. Had he started the season, probably would have probably not been as underrated as he was, but he's obviously played in like the past 10 couple of games or so, and there's something about him. So I'll be interested to see if West Brom keep him on for next year. This question made me laugh when I saw it, but he said, which Championship footballer and manager would you invite to a house party? That just took it back to the Championship 365 thing where you had that stag do debate. This is almost like a version 2.0 of this. So Championship footballer and manager that you would invite for a house party.
Championship footballer and manager. See, he's not in the game at the moment, but I feel like Neil Warnock could just be great value to get involved in that sort of, just to get a good sort of like story from him or something like that. I feel like he just deliver for that sort of night and things like that. And then player, I mean, I just think Ben Pearson would be a lot of fun for that sort of thing. He's always my go-to, isn't he?
I had a feeling, I actually wrote down what I think you'd said, and Neil Warnock and Ben Pearson was actually the two I thought you were going to go for as well. I'm going to try and be different. I would say Nathan Jones as the one.
He would be fun. He would be fun.
Just from his passion, just if you've seen the celebrations he does after the games, and if you imagine him with a couple of drinks, he will be absolute carnage. And for the footballer, I thought of Ollie McBurney. I think he'd be a lot of fun as well. As long as he doesn't get in too much trouble and he doesn't lose some stuff again, he should be a good one for a party as well. But Stearman and Pearson, those hard, ready players, I think they'd also really be good as well. Yeah. And he's asked a dreaded question, quoted Charlie. He has said, does pineapple belong on pizza?
I'm quite indifferent about this. Like, I'm not 100% either. I'd never get it, but if it was like given to me, then I would eat it. So I can accept it, but I'm not a big advocate for it. Is my best way of saying it.
I just say pizza's pizza, isn't it? They look at pineapple thinking of ruined pizza, but I'm just saying it's pizza, So I'm more or less the same for you. I wouldn't have it as one of my favorites, but I would completely agree with that. Another one that made me laugh. I'm trying to get through these as quick as I can, so I do apologize. So, who has the best and worst trim in the Championship?
Ooh. I think best trim, I'd have to say Hanno Masengo. Whenever you see him on a football pitch, just straight away stands out. You know what you get from someone like him. Worst trim in the Championship? I can't really think of someone off the top of my head. Not to like dig anyone out or something like that, but it'd probably be someone like, I don't know. I'd have to have a think on this one. Have you got anyone in mind for that?
I mean, there was a stage where my trim was an absolute mess and people kept calling me Ben Pearson for a good 2-3 months straight. And I've just not been able to just leave my hair down as it is because it's happening in a lot of streams. But, you know, I'd feel bad for saying it's Ben Pearson, but for the fact that it's got me to a really bad term with my community, especially for how especially this was like really like deeply in the pandemic when hairdressers were closed. Everyone just kept calling me Ben Pearson. It was literally just all bulged up and just completely untidy. So, I mean, I might have to say Ben Pearson as much as that might break your heart, but best trim. Yeah, I know, it's ridiculous. I know I should go for some more original, but yeah, I think Hanno Masengo is a great shout. I think would even say Taif Chong could be up there as well. So yeah. They've got a good rivalry right now. So I'll be interested to see what happens for next season. At least people do tend to try and change trims through the season as well. It's always quite interesting. This is a good one. If you could change anything about your YouTube career, what would it be?
Ooh, interesting. I think it would just be in the early days. Don't be afraid to try something new. I think that you can get quite stuck in thinking like, okay, I'm this sort of YouTuber, so this is what I do. I won't do anything other than this. But yeah, definitely don't be afraid to sort of experiment and try some new things. Some things will click for you and some things won't for you. But yeah, definitely that. Be up for experimenting with anything.
Yeah, experimental. I think I completely agree. Even just seeing from what your channel was and what it is now as well. I've had you even start doing Championship football a little bit earlier. You know, who knows what your channel would be right now, to be honest. So it's good you made that change, though. You found a gap in the market and you've stuck with it, though. And sometimes, you know, you do learn more as you grow up as well. You know, what you've got available, what your interests are. That naturally changes as well. And naturally you tune into that. So, yeah, I mean, if I had to change anything, I mean, I would hate to say it, but I probably would have changed my name. I probably would have thought maybe I needed a better, more football-related name. But it was something a little bit creative. It was something that Matt asked me, and it took me quite a bit to explain what it was. So I won't bore you in trying to explain it. But just in short, it's 3 nicknames fused together. That's literally all it is. So that's all I'd say about that. So it'd probably be something, I don't know, Lex football channel, something a little bit more related to football, because people think, you know, what on earth what's this guy doing? You know, he's not got a football related name. The only evidence they've got is my logo, which my friend made, but that's the only thing for it. So if anything, I probably would have thought maybe actually think again before changing name. But since I've had it at the start, I feel like I have to still keep it on unless I go through big change. So yeah, similar changes there. In fact, actually, I just looked at the next question, and this is literally exactly that. If you could change your YouTube name, what would it be to?
I reckon I'd like move with the times. I go for like Ben 4K, because they're thinking, oh, it's not HD anymore, it's 4K. Cause maybe that's like dating me a little bit. So yeah.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, HD with looking like mid 2010s. You know,
Ben 4K. Wow.
Yeah, I know. You'll be absolutely upgraded there. I mean, I've just explained what I would change my name to anyway, so I don't need to answer that. Another pretty outrageous question. Who is the most bang average team in the league?
Ooh, the most bang average. See, I think that if you're like in the bottom 3, I think you're worse than bang average at that point, aren't you?
Yeah,
so I think we need to look at someone like in the middle of the table, really. And this season, bang average, I'm looking in those places sort of like 19th to 15th in that area.
Yeah.
Probably have to say like Birmingham, maybe, just because they've been so consolidated around this sort of period of the table for so long now, and it's felt like they're capable of more, but it's not happened for them. That they've sort of just fallen into the bang average mold, really, which is a shame for a club as big as Birmingham.
Yeah, I'm not too far away. For one team I thought of was Bristol City, because they are very confusing. They go through a good away run and a poor home form. Then they go through a brilliant home form, but then a poor away one. You know, there's no in between. They can't have good away and home form. You know, naturally, that's just literally the definition of average. If you can get one thing right, but then you can't get the other thing right. You know, the only thing that's not quite average is that you would argue they're in the lower part of the table rather than just like right in the bank slap in the middle where West Brom are right now. So I'd say Bristol City's, and I do have Bristol City viewers as well. So nothing against your club. It's just my opinion in this moment of time. And then the question that I had to kind of read again just to understand it. So Rasco has asked, you know, we've got the big six in the Premier League, but what would be the championship equivalent for this season?
Oh, so we're going off this season, not like in terms of like historical.
Yeah, I was going to say, because if it was previous seasons, I would have thrown Leeds, especially, you know, all those teams, and even teams in League One could be up there as well. But apparently this season, which I think is quite tricky.
Ooh, so we're basing this off like performances this season or like club size overall this season?
I'd say club size and performances, I would say, which is very difficult to kind of average out.
That is tricky.
And some teams have overperformed.
Yeah, I mean, Fulham, I think we probably got to throw Fulham in there because they're like the Man City of the league at this point, are they? Scoring so many goals and running away with it seems. Other big hitters in the Championship, Middlesbrough, really big club. I think Forest have to be in there in terms of a big six. In terms of fan base, stadium infrastructure, West Brom probably in there as well. Not in terms of performance, but in terms of size, really.
Agreed.
Size of the club as well. Derby, even with the point deduction, they're having a struggle. And then how many is that? Is that 5?
That's 5, so it's one more.
Ooh, there's a lot that can make it with this last one. I mean, like Bournemouth, if we're looking at like current squad and things like that, but then if we're going off size more than that, we got a few of the big ones around London and things like that. The Welsh clubs as well. Birmingham have got a massive fan base.
That's right. Yeah.
Blackburn as well, Premier League glory.
There's so many.
I slagged Blackburn off earlier, so I'll throw them into.
They'll forgive you now for that. That's all they wanted to hear, that they're considered in the big 6 teams of this league. I don't necessarily think I'll do the same. I think the East Midlands, Forest and Derby have to be up there. I would even dare say Birmingham should be up there, I feel.
Yeah,
Birmingham should be up there. Sheffield United, you feel you should have there as well. Just, you know, I think the Sheffield clubs in general should be up there, but then I could potentially miss out Fulham and West Brom because I've already done 5.
Oh yeah, did I even say Sheffield United?
Yeah, Sheffield
United. God, oh no, mine's a shambles then. Oh no, I'll take it all back. Sheffield United over Blackburn, get them out.
You've lost them now. Blackburn fans were previously in your side there. Yeah, no, I think Sheffield United was the first one I thought of, and then I actually thought the 3 relegated teams, but then I would still say I think the 2 East Midlands actually just tramp over there. I still think maybe, oh goodness me, I'm going to say Fulham just for how good they've been. But that means West Brom miss out, and I feel bad about that because they're a team with really, really good history. So they're just going to have to miss out in 7th in my hypothetical Big 6 table. Where would be your dream holiday?
Ooh, dream holiday. I've got quite a few places that I'd like to go because I've never really ventured out all too far. I think I like the thought of Italy a lot. I think Italy's got quite a lot of sort of variation as well. I also apply it to football and think of what like football stadiums that I'd really like to go to. I think that Italy's got quite a lot of variation within that and stuff like that. But I'd really love to experience the atmosphere of a South American match as well. So like somewhere in like Argentina or like Brazil, I think that would be like mega.
River playing Boca Juniors would be crazy.
That would be real.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I think because I've been to America, but we're talking about 7 years ago since I've been there as well. Really, like the only other really European country I've actually done there on a holiday would have been France. You know, the rest. The places I've been through Europe would have just been through tours and stuff like that. I've been to Hungary, which is quite nice. Amsterdam, you know, it's quite nice as well. It's a bit young at the time, so if I'd go to Amsterdam now, probably would be a different scenario there. But Yeah, that'd be a bit different as well. But never been to Spain actually, so never been traveled to Spain, never went to the Spanish
that'd be a
islands
good one.
either. So yeah, that probably would be what I'll go to as well. But then even when you're talking about seeing stadiums as well, I would love to see like the Milan derby, for instance.
Yeah,
you know, in
that'd
Italy.
be
That
really good.
you know, you definitely would be wanting to see some really, really big derbies in a footballing sense as well. One of the final ones. What is your favourite meal deal?
Oh, favorite meal. See, I always get
We're
absolutely
just entering
battered.
into the happy hour podcast now, so I'll just
Yeah.
have to apologise there that we've actually been unoriginal with content, but this is due to the question. You know, I wouldn't have asked this anyway.
No, yeah, honestly, I'll get like in the group chat by my mates, I'll get battered for this because you know, like the memes you see of like the most basic like plain meal deal that you'll see on Twitter. Like, I'm guilty of being that guy. I'm not gonna lie. Like I am partial to like some really sort of crisps and like a cheese and ham butty, something like that. So I'd go basic on that and then go for some really wacky drink, really, some sort of fruity mix. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you had something to salvage it at least, from what I would say. I mean, I tell you, I was guilty of this, especially starting off, you know, going through meal deals as well, but just going through university, they really do come in handy when you don't have a lot to invest. But in terms of my go-to, it changes really a lot. I would say BLT will probably be my go-to sandwich, and then I'd go probably through a flamed McCoy's, I'd say. I mean, because I was really like down to the ready salted crisp clan as well, but then, you know, just as you say, you just get absolutely battered if you just lift off that. So, you know, you do try other things, and then thankfully, you know, I have those two just kind of to leave it out, because with drinks I'm not really that adventurous. I'll just simply go through a bottle of water, really, to be honest, for a drink. So pretty different. It's literally polar opposites of having an interesting food in my end, but a boring drink. You in boring food with an interesting drink. So completely polar opposites there. But I can't even remember the last time I've had a meal deal as well. So can't really necessarily say it would be my go-to meal deal now. Right, Ben. So that is all of the questions. I know we kind of overrun our time a little bit, but gosh, yeah, we'd be recording for such a long time there. But we could go on if we do have time. But I think that's the best time now that we could just leave us to it there. Honestly, Ben, thank you so much for turning up to my channel today. It's an absolute honor. Just for final time, where can people find you for BENHD content? Yeah,
it's been a pleasure. So BENHD, YouTube, everything Championship. But yeah, really enjoyed it. All the best.
No, thank you so much. So guys, please do follow Ben if you've not subscribed. And for this channel, please like, subscribe, and share. That all helps the community. That'll wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for watching, and take care, guys. Peace.